Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. So welcome everyone. I'm going to introduce myself and then I'm going to turn over to this gentleman here to my right, Matt, and he'll introduce himself as well as what his role is. And then we'll go ahead and get started with our sharing today in regards to our Transformational Health Lean Training Program that we've developed and are rolling out in the organization. So my name is Brian Hand, and I've been asked to come to share what it involves in developing a lean training program that really is an investment in people. And a little bit about my background. I've been working in process improvement roles for about 25 years now. I started off working in the automotive industry for Toyota, General Motors, moved into aerospace, worked for Pratt Whitney, and then had this itch or appetite to really get involved in healthcare and apply my expertise and knowledge around process improvement in healthcare, but I wasn't one of them. I was an industry guy, right? So they were looking for nurses and healthcare folks to do process improvement. And so I had to go through that transition. And I know there's always questions that come up regarding that. But I finally was able to get an opportunity to work for UCLA Health, where I began to help develop their lean operating system. And spent several years there and then transitioned up to Sutter Health, back down here to Scripps, and then now I'm back at UC San Diego Health. So really proud to be here. So again, with that experience, I'm part of a transformational health department team that's really working across the organization to develop capability in people, skills, and mindsets. And so I'm going to turn it over to Matt to introduce himself.
Thanks, Brian. So my name is Matthew Hilton. I am the program manager for Transformational Healthcare. I joined the team about 5 months ago, at which point I was an analyst with Operational Strategic Initiatives here on campus. They have a booth up in the main ballroom. So I highly encourage you to go check them out and their good work. I am a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. Prior to this experience, I had no experience with healthcare. So it's been a very educational experience this time, and I'm super happy to be part of a team that's making a positive impact for the health system. I also wanted to mention for our guests who are joining us online right now, there will be a Q&A session around 11:30ish, and you can use the chat feature in Zoom to ask your questions.
Okay, well, let's go. So why lean training? So that question always comes up about training. And many of us have been in organizations that train people, but that training doesn't get translated to improvement or change or action. And so I'm going to walk you through how we're really changing that process here at UC San Diego Health to get results. So the first thing and foremost is that we all have a belief that people are our most valuable resource. Okay, with those, again, without people, this doesn't happen. Nothing happens. The direct patient care that we're offering and delivering, processes in general. One of the other key things.
Please mute your mic.
One of the other key things that also I realize and have learned over the years is that training is more than a set of tools. Oftentimes we go to seminars, we go to training, we get all jazzed up, we come back and then we think, we've learned some tools, but how do you take the step forward to actually translate these tools into improvement, engaging people? And so we're going to walk through how do you invest in people. We'll talk specifically about our design of our program and the value and the results that we're already beginning to see. But once again, one of the most important things for our training program and our vision is really, it's about respect for people, and our whole focus is about people. Over here on this illustration here, many of you that have been involved with the Lean Six Sigma world may recognize that symbolic house. And what this really represents is sort of a operating system, a lean operating system, where you have a foundation here, typically around standard work, and you have columns, one being around the just-in-time and the right side being around quality or JIDOKA, with the capstone really being around the organizational priorities and goals which are also focused on the patient. But what you do notice here again, it's all about people at the center of this model. Okay? So it's about the people. Toggling. So as we're figuring that out, the other thing that
This is for PDCAing as we speak.
the next thing when we talk about people is that's great, but in any organization, there are a lot of top-down initiatives. It's very much about directing people what to do, which doesn't promote engagement. And so on your left here, you see a traditional model where it's the top of the organization, the top of the leaders are really providing direction and guidance on the way down, but we don't oftentimes engage people and focus on the investment and development of people. One of the things that we're doing, keeping this model, this mental model in mind, is flipping that, where we have leaders and stuff that are being developed and trained, and building that knowledge base and skills and behavior, so therefore they can go ahead and be servants of those closest to the work, those actually caring for the patient. So this is the mindset that we're taking into consideration and really working to flip, so this can become reality as part of our program. One of the first and foremost things, though, that we have learned, and I have learned over the years, is having a strong support mechanism. And many of us have gone to seminars, we go to lean training programs, or whatever type of program it is. We come back and we hit a wall. We don't get the support from our own supervisors or bosses or managers, and they don't quite understand what we want to do, the vision that we have in regards to whatever training it is that you want to roll out. Specifically, ours is the lean training program. And we don't have their support, and it goes nowhere. And so one of the first things we do is making sure that we have a very strong, influential leader that understands or gets it. They understand the vision and the direction we're trying to go and is behind the program. It really only takes one start, right? Really understands it as a driver and an influencer of others. Once we get that person involved, right, they begin to build that guiding coalition, and that's important, build that guiding coalition. And then we start to take action with some of this newfound knowledge that Matt's going to talk about and get results. One of the things that we see is the most effective is that the talk is cheap. But when we can translate this into action and get tangible results, it gets the attention of other leaders. But then they say, we want a part of this. Can you come work in our areas or come help us and teach us and coach us through this? So one of the key things here again is identifying a key stakeholder that can help influence by building that guiding coalition and protecting time. If you don't protect the time for investment in people and training and activities, that time will be consumed. That time will be consumed by other activities that oftentimes does not lead to improvement or success. Anyone asking what is this down here? Do you know what that is? Any ideas what that is? It's a mechanism. It's a strong support mechanism, right?
Plumbing.
No, it's really it's some 1800s lid off of like a safe or something like that. I just wanted to get you guys to wake up a little bit. Okay, so that's a strong mechanism. Okay. It's not about the training, especially bringing programs in. We're talking about Lean Six Sigma training. It's not about bringing programs in from the outside. As I told you guys, I'm from Toyota. I worked at GM. I've worked in other industries. The problem is when we bring in sometimes programs from other places where we've worked, we get a lot of resistance. That's not for us. That's not our way. You don't understand our culture here. So one of the first things that we did is really spend time understanding what our history was here at UC San Diego Health, understanding the things that have worked in the past successes and failures, as well as understanding where do we want to go and how do we make sure we don't make the same mistakes, because there were some things that had been rolled out in the past. We've all had that, and they didn't survive. Understanding and reflecting on why they didn't survive is really important so we don't make that same mistake. The other thing that we considered and talked about was, do you bring in outside consultants? I don't know if we have any consultants here, but I've been consulting work in the past. It can be effective for certain things, but one of the other things that we have learned is that sometimes when we bring consultants in, they come in with their programs. They're being paid to execute certain things, training sessions, improvement events. But when they finally leave, that knowledge and expertise leaves with them. It hasn't translated to really the development of people that have lasting results, creating that culture of continuous improvement. And our vision here in the organization, we maybe touched on this a little bit this morning during the kickoff. Really, our vision is at a very high level in this organization is to touch everyone, have everyone engaged in participating, involved in process improvement, not just a few people running around, consultants making improvements, but everybody in the organization. We're going to do this really in 3 ways. Is to really develop the knowledge of 9,000 plus people on the health side. We want to start making sure that knowledge translates to skills, and so they have the skills to do process improvement, to approach things in a new way, and have a different behavior, which really starts with, let's invest in people and make incremental changes. Let's do this in a new way, not rely on our past 50 years, but we need to look at new ways to have new behavior about this, okay? But it's a balancing act. So pulling it all together, so first and foremost is, that sounds great, Ryan, right? Starting a lean training program, but we need some resources behind this, right? One person can't go and do this, 9,000 people, that's a daunting task. So what we did is began to look throughout the organization saying, who do we have? What capabilities do we have within our organization that we want to tap and perhaps bring into this team? As well as sometimes bringing in some external resources. People say, yeah, but they don't understand us. But one of the things that I have learned in my years of experience is sometimes nice bringing in people with a new fresh set of eyes. You ever experienced that before? Someone that can look at things and say, you know, why are we doing it this way? Or could we consider doing it a different way? And so that's what we did. We brought in some people from operational roles in the organization and some from even the campus side. And we brought in some people from the outside, and me being one of them, who was not familiar with our UC San Diego health processes, but had a different perspective perhaps that would help to balance out the team, to create really a functional team that could help to change the culture and deliver this training improvement process and culture that we're aspiring to do. So the other key thing here was doing this in a way that's fun and engaging. Oftentimes people are stressed out, feeling overwhelmed, we're doing more with less, but our aim was to go about rolling out a lean training program, which Matt will be sharing in a moment, in a way that provides engagement and fun. We feel and believe that if it's fun and engaging, people will want to do it more and get involved. And so that was one of the first things. Lastly, before I transition to the next slide, is think about what you're asking for. We began to set out on this journey saying we want to make process improvement available to everyone. We want to invest in developing that knowledge base, starting to hone and polish skills of our employees, as well as create those behaviors to tip this triangle over of our leaders. And we started getting a lot of uptake. We're getting phone calls. When can you come help us out? Can you train our department? Can you train our division over here? So you start having massive amount of people that want help and support and coaching and training, yet you don't have the resources to support it. And everything's a priority. And so we've been really careful to work with our top leaders in the organization to focus and prioritize where we focus our time and build a plan to be able to help touch the organization over the next few years. But a very methodical plan that doesn't discount anyone or any department, but it's very focused on certain areas that need help initially to get going. It will eventually touch everyone in the organization. A couple other things, considerations when planning as we developed our program was to look around the organization to see who else is doing things like this. And in doing so, we found that there's other departments that are focused on Six Sigma. There's other departments that are focused on project management that are also doing some form of Lean or Six Sigma. And one of the things that I learned quickly in my career is, as an employee in organizations that are large, and there's other functional areas having different programs, you still sort of feel caught. Like, what are they doing to me? Is this the priority? Is this the program we're following? They talk about PDCA over here, DMAIC over here. It's tough. And so one of the first things we did is really went around the organization and assessed what's going on, what are the different programs, methodologies, and cultural transformation activities taking place, so we don't create frustration and confusion for our internal customers. So we did that. We spent time in partnering with other departments and divisions throughout the organization to make sure we complemented each other and we're not duplicating efforts. Lastly, we talked briefly about scope accordingly, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to scope what we can influence over time. We have timeline being able to scope work and not sign up for too much and have very effective results. One more thing before Matt gets into the details of the program that we've developed was based on past experiences. And I've worked in a lot of different organizations around the world. Is that oftentimes very ambitious. We go out and are gung-ho and energetic about making improvements, technical improvements to processes, moving equipment and fixtures and things around, even virtual or information systems, but we don't focus enough effort on the people. So we make technical changes, but we don't bring the people along, investing in them, knowledge, skills, behaviors. And what we often find is the programs fail. You guys ever seen that before? We go gung-ho, we invest in all these great things, the people don't buy and don't understand the why, they're not getting the investment in training, and the programs fail. So we've made a very conscientious decision here at UC San Diego Health to focus not only on the lean technical aspects, but incorporating change management also into our program. And lastly, requirements of training. A couple key things before Matt goes into the details is we have established very, very clear expectations on the front end of what to expect as people begin to come through the program. Number one, really leadership sponsorship. So before anybody comes through the program, we want to make sure that their supervisors, their leaders, their managers are supporting them. Oftentimes, I've learned that when we go to training programs, we don't have our direct supervisors or manager support. We come back, we don't get the support. Just get back to work. I've asked you to do certain things, but I really am excited. I want to try this. That's great, but we have other priorities. So making sure you have that support from the get-go is really important. Also, leaders need to become students at first. We need to make sure we're touching the leader of the organization, investing and helping them to model the way for their direct employees. That's another key requirement. The other key point here is before we have the different support people come in like myself to partner with departments as they're starting to implement their newfound knowledge, is that we expect them to try first. It's very easy to say, can you just come over and help me one more time? Or can you train my people for me? And my response is no, right? I'm going to invest and help you, but the end result is your team needs to see you take the lead, take the initiative to train, to teach, to coach. And then lastly is about time. I can't emphasize this enough, and I think Matt will touch on this again. If you don't make the time and you look for the time, it's going to get consumed by something else. This is probably one of the first and foremost difficult things to do. The lean technical stuff is easy, but it's about how to protect time for this extremely important work, investing in people, process improvement, the change management activities, but it's about making the time to do this, because that time will be filled with other things that perhaps does not translate to improvement in cultural transformation. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Matt, and he's going to talk about the program and the methodology that we're using.
Alrighty, so I'm going to kind of speak to our thoughts behind how we designed the structure and the logistics of the program, if you will. So in that, we are a health system and everybody needs everything done due yesterday. We had to make sure that while we are designing in the rigidity of our training and that it's structured, it's multi-level, and each level builds upon the last. But we also needed to make sure that we were ensuring accessibility to the training. Every stakeholder group will inevitably have unique availability and bandwidth strengths, or constraints rather. So we wanted to explore the different ways of delivering this training. We started with a didactic and interactive in-person training. We have since piloted the foundations course in LMS, which is the UC Learning Center tool, as an e-course. We've also packaged it as an electronic booklet that we can just send out as pre-reading for people who want to go into the basics course, which is the level after foundations. And as Brian was saying, our first training cohorts, when we get to the rollout, which I'll discuss in a minute, were leaders. And as we know, leaders, they work 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, and it's really hard to carve out time. So when we were scheduling the first leadership cohorts, we collected the voice of customer by reaching out and asking them what days of the week would work best with their schedule. And we tried to accommodate that to the best of our ability. We created different levels of learning based on needs. So the last thing we want to do, because it's counterintuitive to retention, is make people drink from a fire hose. We want to equip them with the skills, tools, and methods that they need to take back and they can apply right away in their unique work areas. So in other words, right size the training, if you will. You'll see when I get to levels, the levels are stratified according to position in the organization as far as management goes. And most importantly, and Brian spoke to this as well, we need to have fun. We need to be establishing those emotional connections to our training, because that will reinforce the retention of the training. We are firm believers that training and knowledge should be taught, not just taught. So this is basically a high-level overview of what we landed on. Is anybody here green belt, yellow belt, black belt? Okay, excellent. So we try to align the various levels of our training program with the belt levels. So you'll notice for foundations, this is a white belt level that is intended to create awareness. So trainees are exposed to core lean concepts, basically at a very high level. Next is the basics, which was the second stop on our little training track here. And this goes into a deeper understanding of core methods and concepts. And this is also the class that we equipped the trainees with practical tools to take back to their work areas, such as an A3 for problem solving. We introduced them to concepts of continuous flow, basic process mapping. We introduced them to the daily engagement system, or DMS, which is our management system for alignment, daily readiness, and improvement for health system. Plug here, if anyone is planning on attending the DES presentation at one, I highly recommend it. Next, we have the intermediate class, which is where we equipped our trainees with the knowledge on how to use standard operation tools. So these are tools for collecting data and measuring processes, as well as root cause analysis tools, such as the fishbone diagram, 5 whys, the tree diagram, et cetera, et cetera. Also for the intermediate level, and we'll get into this in a minute, the trainees have to complete a continuous improvement project. And they have to create, or finalize an A3, I should say, and their A3 is featured at a poster session at the monthly Transformational Healthcare Report out. So as a package deal, our training program spans 8 weeks. Week 1 is the foundations in person, or the foundation pre-reading. Week 2 is the basics class, which is a single day. And then week 3 is the beginning of the intermediate class. And the intermediate class sessions are staggered by 1 week. We were going back and forth about whether to offer this in a boot camp style, where the content is all consolidated, or to offer it in a staggered format. And after collecting voice of customer from our leaders, a lot of them said that actually spacing the training out would be more conducive to information retention. So they attend the intermediate training from weeks 3 to 5, and then they have 2 additional weeks without class time to do their continuous improvement project work, and that they return on week 8 for the project sessions where they present their projects to their peers, and their peers they fill out an evaluation form and give them feedback. So for their final iteration, for the poster session, they come back and they have this immaculate, hopefully, A3. High-level overview of some of the content in our training program. So you'll notice here that there is some repetition between the levels, but the important thing to remember is that it goes from very high-level bird's eye view down to a more granular level that's application-based training. Do you have a question? Yeah, exactly. The advanced training, by the way, is slated for development in spring. And this training is going to empower our leaders to really go in and make system level improvements by conducting Kaizen and workshops.
What is DES?
DES is the daily engagement system. This was our rollout plan. We're running short on time, so I'm going to kind of pick up the pace here. So we developed and built the baseline materials in summer. Then we got together a cohort of volunteers who were interested in going through the pilot with us. And then, as I mentioned, we're doing 4 leadership cohorts as well. After each training cycle, we PDCA'd based on our notes and verbatim comments, observations. And we implemented those improvements for the next cycle. We also collected the voice of customer through just engagement, real-time feedback, surveys, and at the end of each presentation session, we do a plus delta discussion. So just a quick snapshot of the various features in our program. This is the emphasis here is again on hands-on training. So in our basis class, we do a lab simulation. Since a lot of our trainees don't have a background in technical, this helps kind of cement some of the concepts. So each round of the simulation is preceded by a lesson. And for the next simulation round, they use those tools to implement improvements. So the group, after each round, will collect the performance data, and then they, as a team, develop countermeasures for improving the process. And this is a great way of demonstrating concepts such as A3 thinking, continuous flow, and also the daily engagement system. I mentioned the continuous improvement project. So this is hands-on application of the tools and methods acquired in training. It has to be relatively narrowly scoped because they only have 6 weeks to complete the project work. So that's been actually a challenge because a lot of our leaders, you know, they have these solve world hunger problems that they come and so it requires like some coaching to help them kind of taper down the scope of their projects. They focus on a process that needs improving in their work area. Again, they come back on presentation day where their work is peer reviewed and their work is featured at a poster session at the monthly Transformational Healthcare Report Out. Teach back. So this is the one that really rouses nerves sometimes, where we're finding out. But this is a way to ensure that the depth of knowledge for our trainees is adequate to then take that knowledge and teach their direct reports. It's one thing to just, you know, load them with all this information and just send them off on their way, but that becomes a QA issue, right? Because you don't know if they actually truly understood the concepts. So this is a way for us to pull a random topic that can come from anywhere in the training program out of a hat, and they have to present ad hoc. What we have learned, we've learned a lot. These are just a few of the big points. So our organization has a history of outsourcing lean initiatives. They bring in teams, but the problem is there's inevitable backslide after they leave, right? Because they're not really training the front line, the staff providers, people who work in the processes to be accountable. And then there's no monitoring or control plans afterwards. Make time, don't look for time. This is a tricky one with our organization because everyone's so busy. But there will inevitably be return on investment if you make the time to improve the processes. And we're very careful about tracking success stories and making case studies so we can then communicate the impact of these various projects and initiatives to the university to show them that it works. PDCA, PDCA, PDCA. So I know the Lean Six Sigma people here are familiar with the DMAIC. Is anyone familiar with PDCA? Okay. There's swag up here, by the way. There's a little PDCA swag. So PDCA is analogous with DMAIC. It stands for Plan, Do, Check, Act, and it's iterative improvement cycle that's popular in healthcare. So if you have any other questions about that, just don't hesitate to approach it. And so are there any questions? Yeah.
What program are you using for developing
So we have Lucid Charts and Visio, but we also do like manual value stream mapping as well on butcher paper.
Yes. UCSD have an institutional license now for Visio. We used to have to buy it on computer.
I don't know about Visio, but we do for Lucid Charts. And if you've never used Lucid Charts before, it's much more, it's more intuitive. It's an easier user interface, the cloud-based system.
This is available for cancer center employees, or do you guys only serve a certain?
So we actually don't own it. It's owned, I believe, by staff education. So I can't answer questions, but I believe so. Like we're able to.
The training,
Get the training program.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So right now, as Brian was speaking to, like we're focusing on leadership. Our team is only 4 big right now. We're growing. Eventually, the foundations at least will be rolled out to everybody. And for those who are interested in pursuing, you know, the higher levels, yes.
leadership, as in like what level of leadership?
So basics is intended for like supervisors, mid-level managers, intermediate for management, senior management, and then the advanced for, this is mandated training for these levels. But anybody who's interested in developing their skills will eventually have access to it.
So if I'm a mid-level manager at the cancer center, I could.
Yeah.
I could.
Absolutely.
We could talk with you
I
after.
know cancer
Interested?
center seems to be like their own weird thing,
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's lots of
University is,
silos
like,
we're finding out.
yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, connect with us afterwards and exchange information.
I had to bring over tools from another facility they use because UCSD didn't have like templates for fishbone and all of this. So I got them all, but they're not ours.
Are you a
Do
health?
we have,
So actually, great news here. Are you a health
Yes.
employee? Okay. So we just launched our website, Transformational Healthcare, on Pulse, and we have a tools and templates page. And you can download all our standard operation tool templates, root cause analysis templates, fishbone, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the Pulse website. And if you go over to, I believe it's the far right department tab, and you go down to the very end, it's Transformational Health. It's an intranet at this point. But I highly encourage you, operational strategic initiatives, as I mentioned, we have a booth over there. They do this sort of process improvement work. And I know that they have a knowledge base with some tools that are accessible. I also want to do, sure, yeah, operational strategic initiative. And I also, quick plug, golean6sigma.com. It's a third party, but It's a company that's owned by instructors who teach the Lean Six Sigma training at Extension. All sorts of wonderful free templates and tools to use on there. And they even offer like a free yellow belt video-based training upon registration, and they have higher levels that you go to.
I was just looking for more branded templates because I branded them myself.
Yeah.
Blocking your logo, but if you get them online on their site, it's not easy to brand.
So our templates are branded at Transformational.
So we report up to UCSD Health. Would you recommend, but we kind of straddle campus, we're located on campus, we're the clinic for all the students. Would you recommend this track under Transformational Healthcare or the Lean Sigma through OSI?
So they're both great. They both touch upon basically the same concepts. It's hard to answer that right now only because this track is not currently available to everyone. So as far as accessibility goes, OSI is probably your best bet. OSI, the senior director, she just popped her head in, Ashley Gambier, she's actually also heads the Transformational Healthcare department too. So you could always reach out to her and see what's possible. We do occasionally partner with OSI staff on projects and workshops. Any questions from our online guests? Okay. Well, if you have any feedback for us, please don't hesitate. Again, this is Brian, I'm Matt, and thank you so much for joining us today and hearing our stories. And we look forward to seeing you in Austin. Thank you.